Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. Today's presentation will talk about your AI adoption journey, focusing on M365 Copilot. And I want this to be as interactive as possible. Please add questions in the chat as much as possible. I'll try to answer them as soon as I'm done with the presentation if I don't catch them over here. I have multiple screens going on, so if you see me looking in other directions, it's just me trying to multitask. All right, with that, we'll get started. So our agenda for today is we're going to talk about a brief introduction. We're going to cover the core capabilities, which everybody should be already familiar with, but I'm just going to touch briefly on some of the highlights. Then we're going to go into adoption and change management. We're going to talk about key roles and responsibilities and some rollout structure or implementation structure. Then we're going to go into how you can measure your success. And lastly, I'm going to provide some implementation resources and quick ways for you to get started on your journey or support you on your journey if you have already started. All right, with that, let's go ahead and get started. So the very first question that a lot of organizations ask at the moment is, well, why should I use Copilot or M365 Copilot? A lot of people are already using ChatGPT. You got Claude that is very popular with the developers. You got Gemini, you got Meta, and so many more. The main answer that you can offer for them is that Microsoft is already integrated deeply within your system. You're already using Teams, Outlook every day, and then M365 Copilot is going to live where you work. It's going to be in the work streams. It's going to be in your email. It's going to be in your Teams chats and meetings, and you don't have to install any third-party extension or do some fancy work in order to get the benefit out of AI. And then the second most important part is enterprise data protection. By default, even if you don't have an M365 Copilot license, you get enterprise data protection. Microsoft does not store or train its models on the data that you provide, so you can rest assured that your data is not being exposed to the public. All right, so now that I know, okay, I'm going to use M365 Copilot, which Copilot? And this is my cheese wheel of Copilot that I like. So there are so many Copilots. Today, we're focusing on M365 Copilot, which is at the bottom over here of the wheel, and it is the Copilot that gets embedded in the Office 365 applications. But know that Copilot has a lot of different contexts and a lot of different applications. For example, it is in Fabric, it is in the Power Platform, it is in Dynamics, and it is also on Windows, which I've been using a lot, quite extensively since it started rolling out. Okay, so now I know I'm gonna use M365 Copilot. This is the one flavor of Copilot that I'm gonna choose. Well, how does it work? So I'm not gonna cover this entire slide just to adhere to the time, but the one important thing that I'd like you to know is M365 Copilot will always honor end user permissions. It can access everything in the Microsoft Graph, so all of your data, emails, files, meetings, etc. It can connect to your other Microsoft applications, such as Power Platform, such as Dynamics, etc. But at the end of the day, as an end user, when you interact with it, it will respect whatever permissions you have. If it can see all of the files in SharePoint, whenever it formulates a response for you, if you do not have access to a file that it used, it will not add that to the prompt. And I'm going to leave a lot of links for resources if you want to dig deeper on how it actually functions. But this is just a highlight of how the prompt flow goes from when a user submits its prompt all the way until it gets back to the user. All right, so I know how it works. I know which one I'm going to use. Well, now comes the difficult part. It is $30 per month in addition to the E3 license if you want to use it in the desktop applications. We're not going to talk about the sales and service copilots for now, but this has been a lot of pain points for some organizations is, hey, this is too much. We're going to talk about how you can frame that, but just know that it's going to be $30 per user per month, and it's going to be billed annually. License can be reallocated. So even if you allocated it to somebody and that person left the organization or they no longer want their licenses, you can reallocate them to other people in your organization. Copilot for Sales and Copilot for Service are additions on top of Microsoft 365 Copilot, but it's not an extra $50. It's only $20. So you pay a total of $50 and you get M365 Copilot plus the Copilot for Sales or Service. And if you're not familiar, the Sales Copilot basically connects to your sales CRM. So you can think of Salesforce, for example. And it has some role-specific capabilities that we're not going to cover today. All right, with that, let's move forward and get into what are the core capabilities of M365 Copilot. And this is just a brief explanation of how it works. It's just LLM plus your Microsoft Graph plus some apps and web search enabled. So M365 Copilot, from the name, it'll be available in every single Office 365 application. If you have an E3 license, then it's going to be in your desktop applications, and it's going to show into a lot of different contexts. The main thing I would like to highlight is there are always new features rolling out. So you will find some of these features just by using the applications. But each one of these features that I'm going to mention right now are just highlights or specific use cases that we have found as we were going through on our journey. So I'm going to start with Word, and obviously we know the basic capabilities of it, but one real good use case for it is translation and remixing of documents. LLMs are superior at translating documents. So using Copilot in order to translate your document to localize it for different audiences is a really good use case. Same thing applies for PowerPoint, but then the narrative builder is really good in PowerPoint. And with the new capabilities that we're going to talk about in the next slide, you can set an organizational asset library. So when you create presentations with Copilot, it will follow your corporate theme. You just have to set an organizational asset library on SharePoint, and you can talk to your IT admin about that. In Teams, as you know, most people right now are recording or transcribing the meeting. The meeting recap is one of the best ways to use it. And then also using it during the meeting as an assistant. So for example, in my team, we work with a lot of cross-functional teams across my organization. Sometimes I hear acronyms that I have no idea about, or sometimes I need to ask specific questions, but I'm not really sure how to phrase them. You can use your integrated Copilot in Teams in order to ask these questions to help you phrase them better. Excel is one of the tools that we have a lot of mixed reviews from. The Excel wizards don't really like Copilot. In Excel, they say it's slow. They say it doesn't do really what they want. But a lot of the other people that maybe are not too familiar with handling Excel or having too much of a advanced formula usage love using it in there. I personally, I will identify as an Excel wizard, but I love the deep analysis feature in it. You can use the Think Deeper as well, which basically writes Python code for you based on your data and shows you some quick insights. This, for me, has been a huge time saver as opposed for me importing the whole file in a Python script and then running my analysis in there. And then OneDrive and SharePoint, the summarize and compare files, creating an agent that is specific to a subset of files. But in general, you get the idea. It's in every app. Now, the new Wave 2 Spring updates. So Don just mentioned the GPT-5 is now available, and it's been available on the same day of release. If you haven't seen it yet, check with your IT admin. It should be rolling out to everybody, including unlicensed users. But for the Wave 2 Spring updates, I have a favorite from it, which is the Create. And if you're not familiar with the Create or you haven't seen what the Create can do, it's basically a mini image generator. It can generate images, banners. It can generate videos through Stream/Clipchamp. It can generate infographics. There's just a lot of different capabilities in there. And I encourage you to play around with it. It's super intuitive to use. And you can also create a brand kit. Again, talk to your IT admin about that in order to adhere to a specific style. Moving on from the create notebooks, and notebooks is basically a way for you to organize your information. A lot of the time, we dump a lot of context into Copilot, and we start asking it questions for that specific engagement. However, with notebooks, you can limit it to whatever resources that you have, and then ask and answer questions. And then obviously the podcast feature, which is rolling out across different contexts, very soon. All right, moving on to the search. The search is very interesting, where it will sometimes expose a lot of oversharing that shouldn't be happening, but I find it very helpful. I find it very helpful in order to find more than just files. It can also surface semantic models in Power BI, which has been extremely helpful for some of our use cases. And then lastly, in the chat, one of my favorite features is context switching by calling out agents. So you can use the @ decorator in order to call out an agent within the specific context. So let's say you have a Monday.com agent or a different agent in your organization, such as Jira or Trello, and you've been using it to gain information or answer questions. Well, you don't have to go open its own chat window. From the main chat window for M365 Copilot, you can just add that agent. And then once you're done, you just exit out of the context. And then M365 Copilot has all of the conversation history, so you don't have to keep opening up multiple tabs and copying and pasting. And then lastly, for the agents, the frontier agents, which are the researcher and the analyst, are publicly available, and you should look up some of the use cases depending on your organization. Some of the best ways that we found use for these have come from our power users, specifically in the creative departments, and they love working with the researcher. The analyst one has been very popular in our CRM or customer service segments because they basically can dump specific spreadsheets that they get out of their internal systems, and then they can ask and answer questions based on that data without really having to wait for somebody that knows how to use data or somebody that is an Excel wizard. All right, so before we jump into adoption and change management, let's look to see if we have any questions. So we have a question in the chat. Is it recommended to open a specific app like PowerPoint before using Copilot rather than starting from the M365? Will user have a better experience by launching PowerPoint and then using Copilot, or the other way around? This is a really good question, Jason. And the way that we try to differentiate it is, if you are wanting to create a PowerPoint presentation and you already know the bits and pieces that you need, then just go ahead and use it in PowerPoint. In the Copilot context, you can actually converse with it and chat with it, same as within the M365 Copilot app or web page. However, if you're still just brainstorming or wanting to figure out idea, I would definitely recommend to just use the browser first. There are a lot of Copilot starter prompts that they can use, and I have a link to the Copilot prompt gallery at the end, which they can look at. But basically, just it depends on the context and the comfortability of the user and what they're trying to do. I hope this gives you a good answer. All right. So any idea when notebooks would be able to be shared? I am not sure. That would be a question for the Microsoft team. But I'm pretty sure that's a highly requested feature. In our organization, the main limitation of using notebooks that we found is the ability to be shared. Our power teams are basically saying that they are going to be using different solutions just because they can share them and they can have multiple collaborators or contributors for them. All right, so now we have a good idea of what M365 Copilot is. We have a basic understanding of the facts, and we also know the core capabilities and the new ones that just came out in the Wave 2, as well as GPT-5, obviously. So now let's talk about adoption and change management. And this here, we'll start it from the very beginning, assuming that you have not had an AI rollout strategy. But then again, you can use bits and pieces depending on where you are within your journey. And some of these functions or roles will really help you a lot as you go along your journey. And if you do not have them, I highly recommend it to you. So what does it look like? So over here, I'm going to talk about how we deployed it within Taylor Corporation, and what are the things that we did as we went along, and what is the definition for each one of these. So it basically is a pyramid structure or a three-layer structure. And I'm going to start from the top, which is the AI Council. In Taylor, it's called the AI Steering Committee. You can name it whatever. Again, this is just a functional role. It's not really about the name. And its main objectives are to set the vision, set the policies, define the guardrails, have a strategic oversight, and provide the governance board, basically, and make sure that any initiatives that are being built up or any proof of concepts or any new MVPs that are being developed are aligned with the enterprise strategy. They're also aligned with the ethics and compliance. And ethics is a very important piece that I always like to highlight. In a lot of the situations, people think about it as an afterthought. This, in my opinion, should be from the get-go. And ethics is a very broad term, but there are a lot that go, a lot of pieces that go into what defines ethical use of AI, and that can be a whole other session. Okay, the bottom layer of the pyramid is going to be the Center of Excellence. In Taylor, we call it the working group. That is basically a sub-team in my team, which is the AI team. It's the Center of Excellence that basically deploys AI in the organization. It enables the users, it trains the teams, it builds the solution, designs the workflows. Its main goal is to drive adoption, extend the capabilities that are out of the box, and then optimize performance by focusing on specific use cases that are more lucrative than others. And we'll talk about how to think about that in the upcoming slides. Then the middle layer, and I arguably think that the middle layer is the most important one. It's the community of practice, and we actually call it the community of practice in Taylor, which is a place for everybody to engage. You don't want to be a bottleneck at the bottom layer, meaning that you have a team of 3, 4, 5, 10 people that are actually deploying, developing, and training, and you have your governance board. But everybody's using AI in this day and age. You just don't know about it, probably. They use plenty of tools. There is an AI tool for pretty much everything nowadays. And there's even a website called There's an AI for that. And you can just filter by job function, and it will tell you what are some of the AI websites that you can use. There is an important piece of making sure that gets brought to light. There's an important piece in making sure that people feel comfortable sharing about what they're doing and also innovating. There should be peer-to-peer knowledge sharing. There should be no barrier, basically, or resistance for somebody somewhere within your organization to just come along, watch something that they can learn from, or present something that they have found. We strongly focus on this community of practice to be community driven, and we'll talk more about its composition. But the main important piece of it is it will break down a lot of the silos that you already have, and it will also change the culture at a much more broad scale. So one of the other common issues that people have when they're rolling it out is there is not enough communication or visibility. And the best kind of communication, in my opinion, is going to be the word of mouth. They're going to hear about it from someone within their team, within their company, within their business unit. So that's what the AI community of practice is for. It's by the people, for the people. All right. So the last piece that I would like to say over here is that make sure that these are not 3 separate layers. There needs to be a continuous feedback loop between them. The AI Center of Excellence should be basically supporting the AI community of practice. The AI community of practice should be routing projects that they believe are valuable for the organization to the AI COE. The AI Council should be seeing the activities on both, and so on and so forth. This should be a continuous feedback loop, and you'll have many iterations until you get it right. And you don't have to deploy the 3 of them at the same time. You can just start with one and then keep on building the layers. The way that we did it with Taylor is we started with the AI Center of Excellence, then we went to the AI Council, and then finally we created the AI Community of Practice. But again, this is just a one example of how you can implement it. All right, all of this is great, but it does not work if you do not have an executive sponsor. So an executive sponsor is basically your yes man. It is the person that believes in the vision, that champions it, preferably someone on the C-suite. And this person will remove all the roadblocks that you will leave. He will highlight the opportunities. He will highlight threat costs. He will focus on the ROI. A lot of the time, people are investment averse in the AI if they are not a tech company or a tech-first company. And they are scrutinizing this because there's a lot of hype in the market. But if you have the right executive sponsor, then you can focus on the ROI and emphasize the strategic value behind AI investment. It is inevitable. Everybody is doing it right now. And regardless of what industry you're in, if you look up your competitors, you'll see that they are doing something with it. So it's very important for you to have a champion that can help you phrase this and communicate upwards. Okay, so let's talk about each one of these layers. So the AI Council is basically going to be your cross-functional leaders. It should not be just IT or security. You should also have people from legal. You should have people from HR. You should have people from your marketing, your sales. You get the idea. You need to get the old guard in, and you have them believe in that new tech. That will be helped, obviously, by the executive sponsor. But then in the AI Council, you cover like your strategy, your governance, how you're going to enable your users, what business value are you going to achieve, or what are you going to try to do? It will also set the direction for the community of practice or the center of excellence on what they work on, what they should do. It will clearly define their roles and responsibilities. And it will basically make decisions that are enterprise-wide. So for example, fair usage policy. For example, whitelisting specific domains or blacklisting specific domains. One such example that comes to mind is DeepSeek. When DeepSeek was first emerging, everybody was using DeepSeek. However, there is inherent risk with that the servers are not US-based. So the AI Council should make a decision on, hey, are we blocking this or not? And then also there are a lot of other important topics from a security standpoint, such as data exfiltration and DLP. So for example, ChatGPT right now has connectors right into your Microsoft OneDrive. So are we monitoring that? Are we enabling that? There are a lot of different things that the AI Council can look at from a broader perspective that have enterprise-wide decisions attached to it. In the beginning, I would recommend that you meet monthly if you're still starting out, just to prioritize initial use cases, create a usage policy, remove any early adoption blockers that you have. But after that, you can meet quarterly. These people are very busy people, and that meeting is typically a very expensive meeting. So keep it short, succinct, and make sure it's focused. All right, so let's talk about the AI Center of Excellence. These are the people that are actually going to be doing the development, the deployment, the integration. They're going to be the hands-on people. You want to make sure that these people are skilled and that these people are up to date with all the different changes that are happening. You also want to make sure that they have actual time allocated, that they're not doing it besides their jobs, but that it is actually their jobs and their objective to go through with this. Even if it's not like their full-time job, but at least a good portion of their goals is leading the deployments and delivering initiatives and projects. They're going to be defining their processes. They're going to own the tools and the infrastructure. And you probably want to measure from the get-go and do not start without having a clear success measure or ROI. You want to focus on projects that are high impact, high visibility, but low development effort or low cost. And there are a lot of different scenarios and use cases. One of the resources that I have is the Microsoft Scenario Library. And depending on your organization, you'll be able to find these projects. Your executive sponsor can help you. Working with the AI Council can also help, but you can quickly point them into a direction and just let them build something. They're going to also be responsible for integrating the AI into existing workflows. A lot of the requests that, for example, my team receives is, hey, can AI do this or can AI do that? And whenever we examine the ideas, it's basically just a workflow. Some piece of it can have AI, but it's just workflow automation. And that's where a lot of the business value is. You just need agile people that can think about workflow optimization and can actually embed AI where it makes sense. It's not a one size fits all, but they can figure out how to phrase that and communicate with the stakeholders. And then one of the most important functions is that they need to have quite the visibility with the entire population of your company, meaning that people need to reach that team, whether through a service inbox or a ticket form or a ticket system. People need to ask for help, and they will ask for help. And a lot of the time, that help is going to be something very basic. But in general, you'd want to have at least one or two resources that can answer some of these basic questions and can give out training sessions, can create training documents and references. In this day and age, a lot of the things that we take for granted, you need to realize that some of your employees or team members will not really know how to do that or will not know how to get started, and they need somebody to just guide them on how they get started. The AI Center of Excellence will help and support with that, and the community of practice will build upon that. And then as your maturity grows, you do not want to be the bottleneck, meaning that you don't want to have everything flow through you and just you for the COE. You probably will go from a centralized control into an advisory model, meaning that instead of you taking on every single request and every single idea, you may advise people on how they can, for example, build their own mini declarative agents, or how they can set up a SharePoint site and set up basic agents over there to answer questions, or how can they define the use of AI for their specific job functions and daily activities. And then lastly, make sure you start small and focus on visible wins. You do not want to be dead in the water before you get started. If your management is already skeptical about the value behind this, you need to make sure that whatever it is that you develop in the beginning actually speaks to that value and alleviates those concerns. All right. And then lastly, the community of practice or the innovation lab. Like we said, this is the bridge between the top level, which is the strategy, and the bottom layer, which is the execution. This basically builds confidence and trust across your coworkers, across your company, when they see other people doing it that are not necessarily in a formalized kind of fashion, meaning like they don't have, like a data or an AI title. It's just like somebody in the customer service department that is showcasing some cool ways they're using AI. It should be approachable, meaning that you'd want to get it out to as many people as possible. It should not have participation restrictions. And you'd ideally want to connect all the pockets of innovation across the organization. If your organization is highly diverse, like mine is, for example, like there's always those pockets of innovation and they will always exist. You want to make sure that you connect them to each other. A salesperson in company X will probably be very beneficial to a sales team in company Y, but they only just need to interact once for them to know and do that knowledge sharing. Make sure that you identify your champions early. These are going to be your power users, your early adopters. Make sure you give them some resources and some time in order to set this up. It needs to be led by them. It should not be led by the AI COE or Center of Excellence. It should be supported by it, but it should have its own board. It should have its own people. The people from the Center of Excellence can participate. They can be part of the board, but you do not want that to be another responsibility that falls on the Center of Excellence. You need this to be by the people for the people. You can also recognize and reward active contributors. You can do hackathons or promptathons. Like there are a lot of Microsoft resources that you can use for that. But make sure that as you go along, highlight your successes and make sure that you scale that community over time. You can have more attendees. You can have a higher volume of meetings or webinars. You can have specialized training. You just let the people do what the people want, and you'll be surprised with the results. Okay, I'm gonna take a pause over here and see if anybody has any questions in the chat.
Yeah, I think we got most of those answered, Ahmed.
Awesome. Thanks, Don. Okay, so let's talk about measuring success. We've talked about all of these great ideas, all of this amazing rollout strategy that we're gonna try to build. Without data, without proof that this actually works, you're gonna be a dead start. So what are we gonna talk about today? We're gonna talk about basically two ways that you can look at your Copilot adoption metrics or Copilot analytics. The first one is going to be the readiness and adoption from the M365 Admin Center. And the second one is going to be the Copilot dashboard that is through Viva Insights. There is a piece that is advanced reporting where you can connect the Viva Insights data through custom reports to a Power BI report, but we're not going to cover that today. I'll leave a link as well if you're interested on how you can set that up, or you can just simply look it up. But one of the things I'd like to highlight is that there's a new AI admin role, and if you have that AI admin role, it gives you access to these some of these metrics and capabilities. I'm not sure if it covers the access for the Copilot dashboard, but it should provide you access to the Copilot and agent usage and adoption within the M365 Admin Center. All right. So let's look at the first one. The first one over here is going to be the Copilot control system, and this is basically from the homepage on the M365 Admin Center. This is just an overview that tells you how are your licenses assigned, who is active, who is not active, how you can optimize it. It tells you how you can basically encourage your users to make it a daily habit. It has some buttons where you can take actions for it. It also allows you to review adoption and activity by different applications. So Teams versus Word versus PowerPoint. It also has a place where you can review the agents. So one of the main pain points that people have been having is agent sprawl. Everybody can create a declarative agent, but there is no centralized way for us to view that. And Microsoft released that this year, which is the agent management view, where you can see all the different deployed agents and you can see who published them. And we'll talk about it in the second slide over here. But then you can also look at your connectors. You can look at your billing and usage if you have pay-as-you-go. So I only talked about having a licensed M365 Copilot add-on. I did not talk about pay-as-you-go for the declarative agent or the message consumption. We're not going to cover that today. In our deployment, we have turned that off. And we chose to do so because we do not believe that it makes sense for our implementation. But if it does, I'll make sure to leave some resources for you to review what that pay-as-you-go means. And then lastly, you have some settings that control what features are available for Copilot within whichever context. One such example is allow users to pin Copilot in their apps or in their home ribbons, basically. All right, so let's talk about that agent view for a second over here, because this is really important. So you can filter agents by a lot of different metrics in it. So you can filter by its type, its availability, and which channels it's supported in. So you have a lot of different kinds of agents. You have custom agents that have been built by Copilot Studio, for example. You have shared agents, which are declarative agents that somebody built through the M365 Copilot app. You have Microsoft agents, which are, like a visual creator, researcher, analyst, prompt coach, etc. And you have external agents that are installed in your system, which also have app IDs. The support locations depend, and you'll see some of them are supported in certain applications, but not others. But one of the other things that you can look at is requested agents. And requested agents are basically when somebody wants to add a specific agent to their specific end user, or somebody has developed an agent and they're trying to publish it where everybody can access it. Which brings us to our last point that I like using a lot, which is review the publisher metrics. So what you can do is you can filter for a shared and custom agents, same as for requested agent, and then you can look up who are the people within your tenant that are most actively creating agents. For example, when we did it in our tenant, we found about 4 people, and each one of them has created over 6 or 7 agents, and they are different agents. You can review the agent name and what it does. So they are very different agents. So these are power users within their own respective functions or teams. We made sure to connect with them, have some conversations about what they're trying to do. And that's a really good way for you to identify power users early on. All right. So within the same Microsoft 365 Admin Center, you can go to the Reports tab, and then we'll talk about the adoption score specifically. The adoption score is for all of Microsoft 365. However, we're gonna focus on the AI adoption piece of it. And the AI adoption piece of it is basically where I said you can, have the suggestions to send messages to have people engage and boost productivity. It will give you a daily habit score as people use M365 Copilot every day. It will show you basically what are the things that they are using it for, how are they using it, whether be it in documents, meetings, or chats. And it will also show you the Copilot usage frequency. So how often are they actually using Copilot for these things? Is it just a one and done, or is there actually different things that they are taking? Then from the same reports tab, the adoption score was the first one. The second one is the usage. And this is where you can really dive into the details of what people are doing with it. So at first, it will show you how many licenses you have and users that are on an eligible update channel, meaning that you can upgrade them right now. They have the proper prerequisite license. It will show you some readiness details for basically where people are using M365 apps, and based on that usage, they are going to recommend some people that are active, and these people are ready, or as they have it in the report, it will basically just say suggest a candidate for Copilot. It means this person is ready, is active, they're using all of the M365 apps with a high enough frequency compared to the average that it is suggested for you to add a Copilot license for them or have a conversation with them on how they can use it. It will also have the Copilot chat usage, both the work and the web versions. The work version is basically the add-on license, and the web version is where everybody's using it. And then it will also show you the agent usage. So it will show you the active users for each individual agent. It does not have the app name in there, it just has the app ID. But then you can pull a report and you can actually map it to figure out which app it is. But it does have the number of active users per application, so you can actually filter out to see which apps are most commonly used. Okay, but the real good piece of it is actually in the individual usage that you can view. So you can actually see the summary and the trends by each application. And you can basically see the chat adoption, work versus web, how many people are using the work version versus the web version. And then my favorite piece of it is the usage details report. This report, basically, you can de-anonymize it. In the screenshot that you'll have over here, you'll see it has just an ID. You can actually run a command to de-anonymize that. And once you do, you'll be able to pull individualized activity by user, by application. It will show you the last activity date, and you can also see the trend over time. But for example, you can see when was the last time they used the chat, whether work or web, when was the last time they used M365 Copilot in Teams, Word, Excel, PowerPoint. You can even see when they use the actual app, so it will track if they're using, like the Create tab or just the search feature or the notebooks. It will also have a column for Edge. So are they using it through Edge? And are they using the M365 Copilot functionality within Edge? And it will also tell you if they've ever used an agent. Doesn't matter what kind of agent, the report does not say that, but it will tell you whatever kind of agent that they were using. The main reason why this is super helpful is because a lot of the times we have stale licenses. These are people that you've assigned the license to, but they have not really been utilizing it to its full potential. We've got a lot of business unit requests where people want to review their individualized usage levels. So they bought, let's say, 100 licenses, and they want to know, okay, out of these 100 licenses, what are we getting out of it? Are the people actively using them or not? And this is one way where you can actually show them that, hey, this is becoming a part of their day-to-day. They are actually using this. Or it can tell the other story of, hey, you have like 20 people that have never even used it once. And you basically make recommendations to deallocate or reallocate these licenses to somebody else that may be better suited for it. From the report that we were just showing before, you can actually see some of the users that are suggested for an upgrade. There was a question in the chat. We're looking at features in the enterprise, not GCC. Correct. This is all in the enterprise right now. It is not in GCC as far as I know, and I think the Microsoft guys will probably know what is available in GCC and what is not. Okay, so now that we have this, we're going to move along and we're going to go to the Copilot adoption dashboard. So the Copilot adoption dashboard is basically basically through Viva Insights. You needed to have a Viva Analyst Workbench license before. I'm not sure that's the case anymore. And you need to have, I think, at least 50 Microsoft licenses in order for this to start populating data, M365 Copilot licenses. But then once you have it, this is basically the dashboard that you can use. You can embed it in Teams, and you can assign delegates as well to see it. And it is designed with one purpose, which is helping you activate your M365 Copilot for your organization. It will show you the total licenses you have versus how many licenses you're assigned, versus how many out of these licenses are active. And it will have the definitions for what defines an active user. And it will have some metrics in the homepage on all the different capabilities that it can, transform your work with through the M365 usage data. So how many meetings, chats, documents, etc. This will also show you the adoption by group and by application. And that's what we're going to look at next. So in the adoption tab of the Viva Insights dashboard, you can actually see the app breakdown. You can see the adoption by group. So if you, within your tenant, have different structures and organizations, you can actually see the different adoption trends. You can also filter it by job function. We like using the organization one because we can actually tone down our rollout strategy. Instead of having generalized webinars or meetings, we actually target specific business units and try to get them up to speed. And we'll talk about comparisons in a bit over here. But in general, you see the app breakdown, you'll see the trend over time. You can also see the usage intensity. So you can see frequent usage and you can see consistent usage. So frequent usage is basically how many active users for M365 Copilot have taken actions, and how many of these actions were grouped into buckets. So for example, it'll have something that'll say 1 to 5 actions this week, 6 to 10 actions, or 11 to whatever. And you can also customize the threshold. So for example, one way that we use that is anybody that has 1 to 5 actions is somebody that we need to re-engage with. We invite them to our recurrent training meetings. We basically make sure that they're added to our newsletters. We make sure that we try to get them to engage with the community of practice, because they do discuss a lot of other topics that we may not discuss in our structured training. And then we also sometimes send out specialized retraining invitations to the inactive people or the people that are not really fully utilizing it, in order to see what limitations they're facing in order to utilize the full capabilities. And then consistent usage is basically how many active users that have been consistent every week. The Viva Insights dashboard is limited to 4 weeks. You'd need to get the data out through a custom Viva Insights report if you want to get it for a longer period of time. Some of the visualizations have longer trend horizons, but the data itself that gets represented is only for a 4-week period. So for the consistent usage, it will basically tell you how many active users that have basically been coming back every single week, and that will be the retention of users. And then it will also show you the app breakdown by action. So for Teams, it will show you like what actions are available within M365 Copilot for Teams, such as intelligent recap or during the meeting or the interpreter. And it will basically tell you how many people took that action. And you can also view the breakdown by the active users and the groups. Okay, there's a question in the chat. Does this report show all agents, Copilot Studio, SharePoint agents, etc.? It does. And each one of them will have its own app ID. One of the reports will show all the agents that exist within your tenant. The other one will only show the app IDs. So I'm not really sure if it will show everyone or if it's a one-to-one match. Probably would need some clarification from the Microsoft people over there. The agent view has changed in the past, maybe like 3 months. So they're trying to add more visibility into it. But you can definitely see the breakdown. Like you can see there's a whole section for the SharePoint agents specifically in the dashboard. But good question. Okay. Moving along to where the meat is. The hours and value calculator, or the Copilot impact, which is part of the Copilot adoption dashboard in the impact tab. This basically has a very simple formula. It just takes how many Copilot actions were taken, and then it estimates how much time was saved by that, and it assigns a dollar value that you can control to that specific hourly rate. And then it gives you the total ROI that you've had. So basically how many licenses that you've had, and then the amount that was saved, and then you can just subtract them in order to figure out your ROI. The way that we like to do this within Taylor is we'd like to focus on what are the most important usages. And then we figure out, okay, what is a good approximation for the average hourly rate. In the screenshot, they have 72, but we typically use a lot lower, and we try to be a lot more conservative with our productivity estimates in order to make sure that we don't get a lot of friction as we go through our ROI calculations. So you can basically estimate $30 an hour. There are other people that recommend adding the true hourly cost, so including all the benefits. But we just figured that a $30 per hour makes it a lot simpler for the calculation because the license is also $30 per month. And then an easy way that you can pitch M365 Copilot is basically, hey, I'm going to be spending $30 per month. If I assume that my hour is worth $30 an hour, am I saving an hour per month or not? And that makes the ROI calculation a lot easier, and it helps you avoid that cost barrier a lot quickly. Also, as you go along and as you have more and more people request it, the upper management that are cost averse will start buying into understanding that, hey, this is a real requirement at the moment, and there is actually a true benefit that comes out of it. It's not just all hype. All right, so in the hours and value calculator, you'll get highlights for the meetings, emails, Teams chats, and documents. So when you go down, scroll down in the Viva Insights dashboard and the impact, you can click on each one of these highlights, and you can actually compare different groups. So we like doing that and seeing the difference in activity between groups, and it looks completely different by job function. It looks completely different by business unit. We have some business units that are super active that basically use it across the board. We have other teams or functions that basically only use it for one or two things, and they don't really utilize a lot of the other stuff. So one of the main things is we have people that only use it for the intelligent recap, and they don't use it for anything else. These are basically CRM agents. They're always on calls. They're always talking to customers. They only use it for the intelligent recap. They don't really use it for anything else. We have had some research activities to see if we can switch some of these into a Teams Premium license as opposed to an M365 Copilot license, just to cut down on the cost. Because as you all know, it's $30 for the M365 Copilot, but $7 additional for the Teams Premium. So there's a lot of value that you can gain out of this, but it depends on how big your user base is. If you have 1,000 M365 Copilot licenses, then you should look at it. But if you only have like 50 or 100, then probably it's not going to be worth it to start figuring out whom to downgrade right now. Garner more attention, get more users, and then you'll see a lot more metrics go up. Okay. So at the end over here, I'm going to leave you guys with some implementation resources. This is a screenshot that I found that basically talks about how you can roll it out as an advisory team, where you do a feasibility study and assessment. You start figuring out what training and support is needed. You start figuring out how to integrate into the different systems, and then you collect usage monitoring and feedback. The way that we do our usage monitoring and feedback, other than the two analytics that we've shown you, is we do send out a pulse survey. So there is a Copilot pulse survey that you can enable by default, and you can send it out to a lot of different people at the same time. So we have a specific distribution list that we use for our AI newsletter. There's also another part of our rollout strategy where we send out monthly newsletters talking about all things Copilot, all things AI, all the new ways that they can use it. And we have different structures that we try out. But in a couple slides over here, we're going to leave a lot of links. A lot of these links are going to have resources that you can actually whip up your newsletter with right away. So let's start rolling out, assuming you haven't already. So there is the Microsoft Adoption Toolkit for Copilot. My best advice is do not reinvent the wheel. You don't have to start from scratch. You don't have to define all of these things. If you go through the Adoption Toolkit, you're going to find a lot of these questions answered in a lot more structured fashion. And you're going to have a lot of best practices that you can quickly implement in order to get the value. The Adoption Toolkit might be too much. It's like 800 megabytes. There's so many resources in there. So if you don't have anything and you just want one thing to start with your AI council. Start with just getting your executive sponsor. Get that executive sponsor to talk to some of the leaders across your organization. Set up a meeting and discuss ROI strategy and how you're going to basically go through your AI rollout. Once you get that meeting up and running, one of your objectives should be an AI policy. Set some clear scenarios, talk about ethics, talk about compliance, talk about which flavor of M365 Copilot you're going to promote first. And once you do have that figured out, then start doing targeted access, meaning you don't have to go and just broadcast to everybody, hey, you can now get an M365 license. You can choose either power users or motivated individuals from your group, from your organization, and you can start giving them the access to M365 Copilot. Depending on your team structure and depending on the outcomes from the executive sponsor, you may have some budget to allocate to people. You may start giving out the licenses without the people paying for it. And then after a while, you can start actually requiring people to pay for it before you allocate a license, and then keep on expanding. In 2025, we're almost done with 2025. I can guarantee you in every organization, people are already using AI. They've already raised their hands asking that, hey, I need this or I need that. Try to find these people. Your executive sponsor can help you navigate your organization. And you can start setting up some discovery meetings, some town halls, basically you just want to get as much information as you can in order to figure out how you can quickly start deploying and start scaling up. One of the things that we did early on, so we started rolling out Copilot as soon as the 300 seat limit was lifted. That was, I think, 2023 November, something like that. And an easy way for us to actually justify this is we just went to our financial data and looked up all the OpenAI transactions. So every single person that was paying for ChatGPT Plus, we basically figured out how many were paying for ChatGPT Plus, and then we presented that as an opportunity. Hey, a lot of the people don't know how to have the privacy control. Back then, ChatGPT didn't make it easy for you to actually turn off the privacy controls. So that was an easy sell at the time. Right now, I can imagine it may be a little bit easier for you given how fleshed out and developed the products are. So I encourage you to just go out and just try to get a conversation up and running from a top-down approach. And then lastly, here are some additional resources. So the Copilot prompt gallery is something that is extremely useful to us. We always use it with end users that are not familiar with Copilot or AI in general. It helps them contextualize what are all the things that they can do. And it's super easy and intuitive for them to use. There is a whole Microsoft Learn about a cloud adoption framework for AI. I find it very useful from a tech implementation perspective, and it does have a lot of the governance and security figured out. There are a lot of customer success story or scenario libraries that you can look at. Some of these, the scenario library link will probably be in the adoption toolkit. And I'm sure you notice now like that 3 of the links that I provided are from the adoption website. So the adoption website will be there. And then the Copilot Skilling Center is really good for you to actually share with some of your employees about how they can start building some of these basic AI skills. There is an adoption playbook that you can basically download, and it has different approaches that you can try. And a lot more resources. And then lastly, that's the link for the advanced reporting that I mentioned, where basically, if you're not happy with just the 4 weeks of data or the way that the Copilot dashboard looks, you can basically set it up through Viva Insights connected to a Power BI report, and you can customize and build your own report. With that, that's everything I have for today. Thank you guys so much. Let me know if you have any questions.
Awesome. I think I got some questions in the chat. They just want to know if you can paste the links to the resource slide in there.
Will do. I'm going to upload the slide and share the link right after this.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much for presenting today. Lots to learn in Copilot world and ever changing. I can help address the question on the reports. The reports are ever changing, and we're certainly getting in SharePoint agents into that report, having a single point, single pane for everything. But certainly that's a work in progress as we're, announcing new things. We're also following up with all the controls and reports that are needed. So great questions. Thanks so much for presenting. It was a really great overview, and really appreciate your time today, Ahmed.
Thank you so much.